Okay. I call the meeting for the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee on June 22nd, 2017 to order. We'll begin with roll call.
Here.
Who are you?
Bill Daniels.
Sean Detzler.
Mike Mitchell.
Joyce Gifford.
Doug Neely.
Lisa Noviak.
Roger Palotais.
The minutes from the last meeting, did you all get a chance to read those over? We were at the pool, just as a reminder of where we were.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second.
It's moved by Mike and seconded by Sean. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. There we go. We're going to get done with this meeting fast. There is another meeting we all want to be at tonight, right? Citizens, comments. I see no citizens. Ooh. Well, hopefully some of them are watching us. Presentations. We have no special presentations for this evening.
Yeah, no special presentations. Start of summer, gave staff the month off. We will continue with presentations on the different departments starting next month.
Okay. General business, Carnegie Library Park and our ad hoc committee.
Yes. So as all of you are aware, at the April 27th PRAC meeting, the PRAC committee decided to form a ad hoc naming committee to evaluate the name of Carnegie Library Park and determine if a recommendation of name change should move forward to PRAC for consideration. The group did meet and did consider, again, the history of the park, the contributions of both the land as well as the amenities on that site, and the historical significance of those contributions. At the conclusion of the meeting, it was recommended by the group to move forward on a name adjustment to change the name from Carnegie Library Park to Carnegie Park. There was also consideration at the meeting and discussion of the contributions of Dr. McLaughlin to the park as well, and that there should be a permanent reminder of his contributions to that site, which would be in the form of a plaque or some other type of historical designation on the site, interpretive panel of some sort. So with that, I will open it up to discussion amongst the group and any other contributions to the process that was undertaken by the committee members that were present.
I would have a question. How is it you decided to drop library from the name that was amended in 2006? It was Carnegie Library Park, and through discussion you've decided to drop library and call it Carnegie Park. How's your thought formation on that?
Did we suggest it be Carnegie Park? I mean, I made the point at the sign. I'm not sure we did that because I made the point at the signage that the current sign could incorporate Carnegie in front of the library park. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that we actually did we? I don't.
My recollection is exactly like Phil wrote it.
Okay,
but
because I was making the point that we could actually fit Carnegie in the current sign with Library Park after.
You did, and I think from my perspective, the discussion moved forward along the lines of if we're correcting the name and we're not looking at cost of signage, if we ignore the issue of budget, for example, and just to do the right thing, what should the name be? And from my perspective, this name flows better with the current library. So it's Oregon City Public Library at Carnegie Park versus something like Oregon City Public Library at Carnegie Library Park. It seemed to be redundant. Yeah. There wasn't a flow, and so for example, the larger sign. Yeah, if we bring the sign back into it, the larger sign I think will probably most likely be replaced or corrected in some way, and that if we were to start over 9 months ago, that would have been probably what we would have all concluded in the first place.
Yeah.
I think that's my perspective of the
Yeah,
name.
and there was a conversation around, obviously there's a lot of different aspects to it, but as Sean alluded, there was a definite discussion around separating the signage completely from the naming process and looking at what the name of the park should be, and again taking in consideration the long term, for the next 100, 200, 300 years, what will the name of this park be, not taking into consideration whatever cost would be for replacing the signage.
And I think that's why Phil chose, and we clearly talked about this, that even his wording, I think he chose very carefully as a naming adjustment, not a renaming, because I look at this as almost correcting the name that we had already changed in 2006. I do see it as an adjustment, not a complete. We didn't just throw a whole bunch of new names at the board at all. It seemed like there was one logical choice. It was just, how does it flow better? That would be my perspective, I think.
For the record, let it be known that Christopher Cook has joined us at the meeting. Thank you, Chris.
Welcome. Well done.
Glad you could get out of that other meeting. Thanks. And I know that when you think of Carnegie Library Park, it just sounds like Carnegie Library. And I know that they are very clear, Maureen was very clear, that it's no longer Carnegie Library, it's Oregon City Public Library. And so by renaming it this way, I can see where it separates. Instead of, it's not Carnegie Library, it's Carnegie Park. So
Yeah, and I think that weighed on us in the discussion. At least it did on me. I know what their desire was. My personal opinion going into it was that I just wanted the word Carnegie in there. I think that there needed to be some recognition for his contribution at the site in some way. And I frankly, I'm disappointed that name came out of the library, but I can't control that. So at least in this sense, we can influence that name staying in some way. I think that's my perspective. And then Doug was very clear to remind us of Dr. McLaughlin's contribution on the site. And so I think that's
Land
why
donation.
this has taken, for the land donation, why this has taken kind of an extra step that maybe we didn't see 2 or 3 months ago. But really, it goes back to Doug's original letter. If you read his letter from 2006, he wanted Dr. McLaughlin recognized for that land contribution, and that portion of it never did occur. So this is almost correcting that omission at the time.
Right.
I think. Does that kind of answer your question?
I was trying to figure out how you came to that conclusion that you probably felt leaving the word library out of the sign was important enough to make that
Oregon
change.
City Public Library at Carnegie Park. That does flow nicely to me.
It does.
It does.
I have to admit, I did put on kind of a marketing, a marketing hat. I deal with that at work sometimes, and I was thinking that the flow and the other one was just redundant. It didn't. If you put it on a sign and you're driving up the hill, it just didn't quite work.
I know that the park had been called Library Park for ages, 50 years, I don't know, maybe longer than that. And so dropping the word library out of the park was a significant change. It was in the 2006 amendment. And so are we moving forward? I was reading Phil's notes on the agenda. Are we going to try to approve this?
Yeah, so that's up to the committee. The next steps would be, if the committee so chooses, a motion could be made to make a recommendation to City Commission for a formal name change of the park from Carnegie Library Park to Carnegie Park. And then the official designation would be considered by the City Commission, and they would have the ultimate say on whether or not the name change would take place.
And I think we probably have three directions we can go tonight. One, we could do nothing for various reasons, whether the existing one works, whether we're not satisfied with the outcome of the naming committee. We could go back to the naming committee if there's something else that maybe we missed. or three move forward with what I would think hopefully a unanimous vote on the current proposal.
Yeah, and I would almost, if there is additional conversation that is deemed to be necessary by the group, I would almost recommend, if we don't have a unanimous decision, that we go back and probably discuss further, as opposed to going to commission with a fractured vote.
I agree.
Yeah, that was my suggestion, was to table this for another month, shall we say, or at least in between, have the community. We did talk to Neighborhood Association, talk to CIC, and we made that known that if there's anybody out in the city of Oregon City through the CIC was interested in the process of naming or renaming both the sign for the park as well as the library, that there was ad hoc committees that have been formed both in with the library board as well as with PRAC. And so that might be one of the reasons why I think that if we tabled that for another month to see if there's interest in discussion through Phil, if the people are interested. Go ahead, Mike.
What?
So I have a question. The procedure, the makeup of this ad hoc committee is according to the city code, right? Or maybe it's not in the code. It's
Department policy.
department policy, which. So that's and this is what it calls for. It's PRAC members. Okay.
Correct. So
what's
two PRAC members
So
as recognized by PRAC,
Okay.
the department head, and then the staff liaison to CIC.
So, to my mind, PRAC has a decision to make and a recommendation to make to the city commission. Whether or not there needs to be community input, that's a different part of the process. Our part of the process is to form this committee, which we did, that committee to bring a meeting to PRAC, and then PRAC to make a recommendation to the city commission.
And the city
I
commission
think
had the
waiting a
public
month
meetings,
and
yeah.
asking for input is a different part of the process.
Yeah, I think there's, we had one thing I remember in the discussion, that our understanding was that we weren't concerned with the signage itself. That was a different issue. This is something the neighborhood association seems to be concerned about, is the nature of the signage. We felt that our only responsibility was what the park name of the park was,
Right.
So I think our recommendation only has to do with the naming of the park. It doesn't have to do with some other issues I think the community has.
I know the CIC will not be meeting in July, so that, for using that as a venue of public input would not happen until August.
Well, let me jump in on that, because we did have one of the ad hoc committee members was the CIC staff liaison, and she was very clear that she was going to be emailing at least the CIC members themselves. Obviously, that wouldn't go out to the public, but CIC members were supposed to be told at some point what was kind of given a brief.
I'll
you-
have to
you look
look
puzzled,
back in
so-
and
Yeah,
see,
I was
because
gonna say,
I think that's
I am a voting CIC member. And
as am I.
And she went on vacation
Okay.
shortly after, so I'm not sure and she might have been waiting for
Our
my
decision.
memo that went out just recently. So
Oh, that's true.
So that could be that she was waiting to forward that memo, which they probably wouldn't have received then if she's on vacation still. But I would also, I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but if we wait an additional month and give CIC an opportunity, and then I know that we typically as a group take August as a break from PRAC, so it probably wouldn't be until at least September that we would meet again to discuss.
Well, I would be inclined to support it tonight and then let those other issues flush out at commission. That's my stance.
I would like to support it too. I would make a suggestion that we could make a decision, but request that the recommendation doesn't go before the city commission until other groups could come in and weigh in on the issue, but we would still have our recommendation out there. I mean, that might be a commission meeting that's out there in September or something. But seems like we would make our recommendation anyway, and not expect it to go to the commission for maybe 3 months or two.
Yeah, and Christina could get the notification out to the CIC, I'm sure, the CIC committee by that time, and additional communication could be had with the McLaughlin neighborhood. I did send out an email again just recently to Denise McGriff to let her know as well of the conversation that would be happening tonight. So there was some communication that went out, but I would also like to recognize Bill's concerns that that hasn't been a wide net has not been cast. And so,
Bill,
But
you
this
have a
is-
sense of the neighborhood. What's your take? Do you think this is an acceptable move? I mean, from that standpoint.
I think everybody always has different ideas, and what you've done. Was it June 7th you met? Was that the day I read on Phil's memorandum?
yeah, so we met in April as a group, public meeting, discussed putting together the subcommittee. At that meeting, I believe Denise was here as well and gave comment, and then we met on June 8th to discuss as a ad hoc committee, and then again presenting tonight.
How often does the CIC meet?
I'm not positive.
They
Every
usually meet
month,
once a
but
month,
not
but not in July because of the 4th of July, because it's first Mondays.
The neighborhood associations meet every 3 months, or at
Every
least
3 months.
I'd like to delay. You said too much. I said 3 months. I'd like to delay it to the point that the neighborhood association would know what our recommendation is before it goes to the city commission. Whether that's 2 months from now or 3 months from now, I don't know.
MNA is every 2 months. Every other month it's the general meeting. But I would support Doug's motion, if that's what the form of a motion.
Well, I haven't made it yet. But I
But
can't.
it sounds, I think that sounds.
You like that idea?
Yeah, we like the idea of at least giving an if there is somebody who has, or more than one somebody who has other opinions or ideas on what it could be called, that would work for me.
I'll move that the PRAC recommend to the city commission that the park be named Carnegie Park, and that it does not go to the our recommendation doesn't go to the commission until after the CIC and the McLaughlin Neighborhood Associations are aware of what our recommendation is.
And I'll second that.
Okay, so it was moved by Doug and seconded by Sean that we recommend to the City Commission that Carnegie Library Park be changed to Carnegie Park, and it will be Oregon City Public Library at Carnegie Park for the name of the library.
That's
And
not,
that-
not part of the motion, though.
Yeah,
Is it?
All right,
it is,
okay.
and the
All right.
reason for it is we're not the library board or
That's right,
anything of that
okay.
nature.
So Carnegie Library Park will just be called Carnegie Park.
Period.
And move that to the City Commission after the CIC and the neighborhoods have had a chance to speak on this. It's
To
Discuss it at their meeting.
Yeah, I would say so. So at this point, moving forward, so if if PRAC votes to move that forward to commission, that will be basically the end of your consideration, deliberation, public input, and then it would go to city commission, and the appropriate public input at that point would be at the city commission level. So if any members of the general public or associations would like to give public comment after today's meeting, if the vote takes place and moves forward, it would be at the city commission meeting.
I do have a question before we vote. Do we want to include our suggestion that some sort of display or plaque be in the park to recognize Dr. McLaughlin's contributions? Do we want that to be a part of the motion?
I would do that as a separate motion.
Okay.
I think because
Yeah,
I don't
muddies
know.
the water a little
Yeah.
bit.
yeah, there might be some, and I don't know if they'd be interested in dealing with it, but of course the Carnegie Library is on the National Register. It might be the Historic Review Board might have some suggestions, although they wouldn't make decisions probably on that, but have that maybe as a bit of a broader discussion.
Keep it separate. Yeah.
But I think we could put a motion forward to indicate our interest in doing that, to indicate the, yeah. So I let this motion, I think, stand as it is, and if somebody wants to put it in the other motion, we can.
So I heard we had a motion and a second, and then
Roger, did you have any
Joyce, if
Well, I'm just not clear why we're voting on it. If you know why we're making a motion to do this. Is there a hurry to do it, or I am not clear on why we're doing this for the neighborhoods and people who haven't had a chance to come in.
Well, we have heard from the neighborhoods.
Well, the general public. How's that? Not that it was a committee, right? So no, I just want some clarification for myself.
Okay.
Why we're doing this now and versus putting it off, or what's the difference? I don't understand. So
to my mind, the difference is this is PrAC's recommendation. If other groups make a recommendation to the city commission, then it'll be up to the city commission to decide. But I don't think PrAC will go back and change our recommendation based on what the neighborhood association or the CIC might weigh in. We're one part of the public process and one part of the commission's ultimate decision. But I don't see, I guess, I don't see a reason to wait, because we're not going to change our recommendation, I don't think, based on input from the CIC or the neighborhood association or other public comment.
what was the I think?
Well, because maybe I'm more definite about it than you might. You may not be comfortable making a recommendation until you know what other people think. I think this is what PrAC thinks. Let the city commission know, and then they have to decide.
I just want to be clear what I'm voting for.
Yeah.
So that's all.
Voting for a recommendation to the city commission.
Right. I understand that.
Okay.
Yeah,
There's
that's one
a
of the
little
reasons.
bit more involved in that than.
Yeah, but that's one of the reasons why I wanted to delay the recommendation going to the city commission until others got prepared to weigh in however they might weigh in.
And Roger, from my perspective, we started in March or April. I think maybe March when it first came up. And every one of our meetings is public, and people have had an opportunity. It's on the agenda. And I look at tonight, I frankly expected people here tonight because of the agenda item. And so I'm clearly taking the message that nobody's sitting here because it's not a problem.
Okay.
That's my take.
Thank you. I got it now. So
Yeah.
thank you for the explanation.
Hey, any final comments? Phil, would you read us what you have then down as the wording for this?
Oh,
For the
so I would propose the renaming of Carnegie Library Park to Carnegie Park by motion of PrAC to the City Commission for consideration. And we
All
have
those-
had a first and second.
Yeah, Doug. Okay, Doug made the motion and Sean seconded. All those in favor?
In a discussion, one more
Aye.
thing I was going to ask is there, did we talk
Okay,
about
some more
timing?
discussion. What?
Yes, the timing of presenting the motion to
Yes,
the council.
so I will commit as staff not to present to City Commission until there has been opportunity for more community engagement to occur between now and then, both through the CIC as well as through the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association, of which the park is within the boundaries of.
So how do we monitor that? How do we know that's been done?
trust
So
him.
yeah, Christina's received the memorandum that went out to the group, so she has that and has committed to sending that out to CIC board. They will receive that. She is out on vacation, I believe, until just after the 4th, so she is going to be gone another week or so. But once she returns, she will send that out to the CIC. I know that we also have, I believe there's a July, Bill, maybe you would know better, there's a July meeting of the McLaughlin group. I know that we are going to be there to give some information on the McLaughlin to Kanema Trail project. And so, either myself or a member of the city staff can also present information to McLaughlin Group on this as well during that meeting.
So the reason I asked that is, do we want to say that it give it a period of time and then present it at whatever month's city commission meeting?
Well, I'm giving
Give it
it
2 months or a month or.
I mean, what I'm hearing is that McLaughlin meets in July, the CIC meets first week of August. So I would not expect him to propose this until the second or third week of August commission meeting, and I just kind of have faith that that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah,
I don't know if I need it in resolution or anything.
So if appropriate notification goes out to those groups, the soonest that it would go to City Commission would be on August 16th.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Is that
Okay.
reasonable?
Any more discussion? Anybody want to call the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Natural Resources Committee, PRAC joint meeting discussion.
Yes. So as we discussed at our last month's meeting, the NRC has suggested a joint work session between PRAC and the Natural Resources Committee. At their most recent meeting, and a member of that group, Doug, can probably help out with the tone of the conversation, but Pete, as the staff liaison to that group, forwarded me some topics that they would like to discuss between the two groups, which would include funding for invasive species removal in city parks, parks with natural resources overlay, stormwater runoff and quality in city parks, additions of natural areas to city parks, such as along the Clackamas River and Tri-City Sewer Park, trees, heritage tree designation in city parks, funding for furnishings of plaques, and funding for arborist reports for heritage tree designations in city parks. So those were the topics that the NRC has suggested, and this is an opportunity for this group to discuss and add any additional items that might be of interest to this group.
For clarification, one piece of property that I think you mentioned two things. We're not asking anything for Tri-Cities, but my understanding is and I think I brought this up before, the property on the walkway and that's going by Tri-Cities and between Tri-Cities and the Clackamas River, and the property to the Clackamas River is actually city property. The park definitely is. I mean, the parking area is definitely city property. And in the past, parks maintain that area. I assume that's still done. Do you know?
To my knowledge.
Yes. So we regarded that as a natural area that needs to be actually probably brought in as a park at one point or another, if we're maintaining it. And we have various natural areas in the city, and the point was made that we have several of our parks with streams running through them. Hillendale, Singer Creek. We mentioned, I think, last time that Coffee Creek is at the very northern end of Chapin Park, and there's probably some that I'm forgetting.
Scattering Creek.
Yeah, and that's in the cemetery. Exactly right. Yes. So,
See that?
then those, of course, are of great interest to a Natural Resource Committee. I mean, yeah.
For both of us. Right.
Yes.
Natural
Yes.
Resource and PRAC, right.
Yes.
So, wow, you went through a long list of things really, really fast.
Yes.
I
I can review again if you would like, or if there are things that.
Well, I got invasive species and
duplicative.
stormwater and heritage trees. That's
Yeah,
kinda-
I can definitely make a printout for the group. And my apologies, I was just printing so much paper
Was
for this
there-
meeting. That
Was there anything anybody in our group can think of that was not on that list
No.
that we want to add? Or I suppose we can add
And
to
I
it later.
can commit to sending out the list to the group, and then if there are topics that would like to be added, we definitely have time between now and then to add additional topics as a group.
Do we have a date for this?
Good question, Mike.
Yes, so that is the other topic of conversation. So the original meeting request that went out had the June, July, and August PrAC meetings as options. When he received comments back, both June and July tied with the most votes. August was substantially less. And so the recommendation, just because of timing, was to request a July meeting just prior to our regular meeting as a group, which would be on
What is that regular
July
date?
27th.
So we'll get out our calendars.
So we would meet earlier that night, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. No, I think it's a great idea. Should be an annual event.
July 27th?
Yep.
Is that what you're saying? And is 1 hour going to be enough? That's what I'm looking at.
We've got some talkers on the Natural Resource Committee. Some of you may know some of them.
How about,
Right, Mike?
You're trying to get somebody in trouble here?
Well, I was talking about Natural Resource Committees, people. Yeah, you don't have to say who.
Joyce, how about from a scheduling standpoint, we look at 6 o'clock, but we look at that meeting going till 7:30?
I think it's a case for us to agree that we will do that within an hour, and if we have some issues
Okay.
that we want to continue on, then we continue at
That's good too. I
Yeah.
was thinking maybe we go till 7:30, and if the PrAC meeting is a light agenda, then it's still
Okay.
stay within our.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Like frankly, tonight I think we could have easily started at 7:30 and fit that before it.
Yeah, so I would say for a publicly noticed meeting, we can meet after the posted time. We cannot meet before the posted time. So it might be advantageous for the group to keep with the 7 o'clock PrAC meeting time and have the 6 o'clock joint meeting, which would then allow you to start the PrAC meeting at 7:30 if need be.
Okay.
But if you set it for 7:30 and you get done at 7 o'clock, you would have a little bit of a gap in time where we would not be able to start the PrAC meeting until
We
7:30.
go out for a beer.
Yeah. What you choose to do with that time is your own.
But we'd have to go out to different places, wouldn't we? We couldn't
Yeah.
have
That's
a quorum.
right.
Yeah. We can't
You're
have a quorum.
absolutely right.
We'd have to fan out across town.
Well, with the list that came out, I think, in 1 hour we could probably triage that list and bubble up some things to the top that are the major concerns, and maybe even some of the cherry picking things that could be done easily and fast. So that's
Great.
okay.
Is Doug the chair of that?
Yes.
Oh, he's kind of long-winded.
All right. The joint meeting will be July 27th at 6 o'clock here, council chambers. And Phil will be emailing us a list of those concerns.
Yes.
And if there's any additions, we need to email those back so the words can get back to the Natural Resources Committee that we've added some items.
Correct. And I would also, this was not an agenda item because it came to me a little bit later, but there was a discussion previously that planning would like to also have a joint meeting with the group. They were actually looking at a July 10th meeting, and that would be a 7 o'clock meeting time. They did not give any meeting topics, and so at this point, I guess it is for you to consider if it is necessary to meet with the planning committee. Otherwise, we can pass and choose to vet that out a little bit more if need be.
It'd be nice to know what we would be meeting about.
Yeah.
Do you have a feel?
I don't. I did ask Laura Turway and she said they did not have any topics immediately, but would like to meet as a group. So I will leave it at that and allow you to decide if that's of interest.
I think we would just request that the planning commission indicate if there are specific topics they'd like to talk to us about. So we just don't go in there.
If we have interest.
I think it's great they're reaching out to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
And just like the NRC thing, it's refined a bit, and
Yeah, exactly.
and I'm really, boy, the list is a lot of things. I couldn't have sat down and came up with all of those. Where a couple months ago, I was the one asking, okay, what are we going to talk about? So,
Okay, so I will let Laura know that the group is interested, but would like more of a vetting of topics prior to meeting.
And that summertime is not usually the best time to have joint meetings.
Right.
We've already got one scheduled.
Yeah, that's right.
That's, please, forget. Goodness.
And to give us some time also, if we think about what the planning commission does, or there's some topics we want to talk to them about. But I mean, I will tell you one concern I've got. We used to have what were called plan unit developments, where people could recommend changes in density, but in the process, then the developer had to do some things, including
Setting
contributing
aside-
property
yeah.
for parks. We don't have that anymore, and we're not buying parkland, and the city's growing, and I don't know if that'd be a topic that we could include in a planning committee session, but it has to. Before, it had to do with development and our ability to get land was through development,
Yeah.
and then we don't have that capability.
well, and that's an interesting topic, and it seems like every time it has come before PRAC, the idea of PUDs were, well, first of all, they took them out of code, my understanding, because they were not favorable, but every one of the parks that they've built are substandard. They don't meet our criteria. There's a lot of, basically none of the check marks we do in a park do they actually meet. And I feel sorry for some of the people that have those PUDs. They're maintaining, there's one over in the Caulfield Glen Oak that serves 1,000 homes, and it's a neighborhood association of like 17 homes that pays for the park. And those poor people have to deal with it, but
It's kind of a hot topic up in Park Place also. They just annexed in 60-some acres for development, and there's a lot of discussion, above Holcomb Elementary, when are we going to get a park up that way?
I think we've got a topic to talk to planning commission.
Yeah.
Okay, now we got a topic to talk planning commission about. Okay.
For a future meeting, or looking at the July meeting? just making sure I understand
Are
your.
you in park planning or
Not
sales?
the July meeting.
July 10th is not very far away.
Right. That's a busy time of year too.
Okay, any more discussion on any joint meetings, or can we move on to the Kanema Trail?
Definitely move on.
Moving on.
So the McLaughlin Kanema Trail, couple of pieces on this. I know that I presented last month or the month prior about the grant that was received by the city's planning department to begin looking at trail connectivity between the promenade and Kanema Children's Park, which would then go into the Kanema Bluffs area. The planning department has secured Alta to work on that project, looking at again the layout of the trail, what it might look like, going through some commercial and through areas, the PGE property through Kanema, which is very challenging, being an older section of the city. They are looking for representation from a number of groups within the city, PRAC being one of those groups. They're looking for representation to serve on their citizen advisory committee. And I know that we currently have Doug Neely serving as an NRC member. So just to put that up, but they are looking for a commitment. The commitment would be for a meeting in July, August, and September. So three meetings during during the summer. Additionally, there is a walk along the trail or proposed trail area next Tuesday, the 27th, at 8:30 in the morning, and is scheduled to go until roughly 10 a.m., so about an hour and a half. The other event that is planned for the McLaughlin to Kenema Trail is a Greenway for a Day event, which is just got scheduled, selected a date of July 29th, which is a Saturday. Part of that would include a ivy pole at Old Kenema Park, and the planning department is working with the Park Foundation to try to, because we know we have so many experts in that field now,
Trained, ivy pullers.
to do an ivy pole event on that date. As part of the grant, did include a public involvement and ivy pole, and then subsequent native plantings.
I will say I do not know I do not know that I in fact represent the Natural Resource Committee.
Oh, okay.
I got an invitation from the planning person that's going to be involved in doing this tour to be on it, and I had assumed that it was an NRC, and I subsequently saw a letter from our staff liaison that talked about it, but didn't indicate that I was involved, and the NRC didn't itself agree for me to be a representative. So I think I got the request as an individual citizen, but I wrote back to the planning staff person. She said, well, an email, and I asked her about should somebody from the NRC go on that trip, and she said, well, you could represent both the NRC and the PRAC, and I didn't think that was good. So if somebody could make it from PRAC, I think it'd be great. It starts off at the VFW as a starting point.
At 8:30 next Tuesday morning.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could, but I'm out of town.
You know what? I can do it.
Lisa.
I can do it.
And Phil, can you send an informational email about that? Because I might
Yes,
pass that
definitely.
out to the VFW people.
I was
too.
gonna.
That's kind of why I was.
I'm glad you brought that up. Kelly was planning on dropping by the Open Friday event, which I guess is every Friday afternoon. I did tell her that I would touch base with you today about the VFW availability.
Yeah, she could just email me, and I can
Yeah.
pass it on to. I know of several people that would probably be
Okay.
interested.
Yeah, I'll send that to you before we go today.
Thanks.
So Lisa will be our official representative if everybody's in agreement with that, and any of the rest of us who have the opportunity to take this walk can also do so.
Yeah, and I will say there's also an opportunity for public at large. So if anybody is interested in just being a citizen representing yourself on the committee, you can reach out either to myself or to Kelly Reed, who is the program manager for that grant application.
Will there also be a representative from TAC, Transportation
Yes.
Advisory?
So
Okay.
yeah, PRAC, TAC, NRC, CIC, I believe.
Right, that's
There's like
the alphabet
there's,
soup.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's like 13 or 14. There's also I believe McLaughlin, a Kenema representative. They were looking for I believe a representative of the Trails Alliance group.
Trails Alliance, okay. How about the Park Foundation?
Yeah.
Okay,
said
Parks
that.
Foundation, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds like a fun group. But can you bring your dogs?
On a leash.
On leash.
You definitely
Only
can.
on leash. All right. Okay. Any other discussion on the Kenema Trail? We will move on to the waterfront master plan.
Oh, Willamette Falls Legacy Project.
Oh, Willamette Falls. I wrote over the top of that. Okay. Yep, the Willamette Falls Legacy Project. Just, show of hands. How many of you got down to the OMSI presentation?
I got the second one, which was a little torturous.
Yes!
Good word for it.
Ooh, yes. Okay, yeah, the second presentation. All right. Okay, so that was a good number of us that were there.
So not much to update. The OMSI event did just happen. There's a little bit of a lull. We are in process of getting adoption of both the MOU between the partner organizations, the state, the county, the city, and Metro. The city did adopt last night at the city commission meeting both the conceptual plan as well as the MOU. So that has been adopted by Oregon City, and the other organizations are expected to adopt within the next couple of weeks. So we should have a fully adopted MOU, which will carry through 2023. And again, construction of phase 1 will go from 2018 to roughly 2022. So there is a little bit of a tail end of the MOU. Staff are working right now behind the scenes to attempt to walk through all of the ownership pieces, what that commitment might look like. The part of the MOU states that before permits are issued, that the 4 partners will decide who will own the Riverwalk or operate the Riverwalk in which pieces, and so it might be some combination of all of the groups, or it might be a single organization with commitments from the other organizations, and so that's still to be vetted out. But sometime in the next few months, and the project manager for the Riverwalk is hoping that by the end of summer that there will be a determination by the groups, the ownership of the Riverwalk.
If I might, there was one thing that came up in the presentation at OMSI that was brought up at the Natural Resource Committee, and we regarded them as conflicting uses. They're planning on the raceways that go through there to have alcoves that are made natural areas, and they mentioned specifically refuges for some, fish and so forth, and then they mentioned and a place for people to dip their feet in the water. Those are completely contrary goals. I don't see salmon going up into a refuge when a bunch of people have their feet in the water. So we brought that up, and I shared that the person that's in charge of basically all the natural aspects, open spaces and so forth, the main person in Metro, I mentioned that concern to him. I saw him last week, and he agreed that they were sort of mutually exclusive kinds of things. And I don't know if the Natural Resource Committee will actually put any formal clarification request in. But so that's one thing that came out at the OMSI meeting that we discussed at the Natural Resource Committee.
Great.
Thank you, Doc.
Was that well attended?
Yes.
Over attended? It was a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think they were estimating somewhere in the 600 range. Both presentations were totally full with standing
room only. Yeah. And it's online. You can see the pictures and things. It's not at Rediscover. What's it called now?
Just Rediscover the Falls.
It is still, Rediscover the Falls still? Okay.
Yeah. We were at Granville's bakery, Beth and I, and a couple came through on bicycles and came into the bakery. They had read about it, and they had gone to the OMSI presentation too. So, and I don't know if that was their reason for biking out to Oregon City or not. I think they saw something about Granos, and if you haven't gone to Granos, they got excellent bread.
And I was out in front of, if you weren't at the event, I was out in front of in the concourse area, out in front of the front doors, and we had many people who were just biking past or were visiting OMSI that were unaware of the presentation and took a flyer and planned on connecting later. So I think it was a good opportunity both for the users and the folks that are aware of the project, as well as the general community to get a little bit more information on it.
Some of us were unaware that there was a naked bike ride too, and we missed it. So, came too late for that one. We missed that one. But what I was most excited about seeing at this presentation was that the building that's going to have the slide, the kids area with the slide up at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you haven't seen some of those, I mean, you know,
It
things
just-
are moving fast there, but actually taking some of those structures that probably can't be rehabbed or in the floodplain and so forth, and leaving the skeleton there, and it looked, the concepts looked great. Very
Yeah, that was exciting.
good.
Yeah. And
Wasn't expecting that, and that felt good.
Yeah.
Any other comments on that? Okay. Now, I won't jump ahead of myself. I'll get down to the waterfront master plan.
So I don't have much to share on this topic. I was planned to have the RFP out by this point. That has not happened yet. But we would like to maybe formally discuss having a representative from this group to help to select the consultant that will be taking on this project once the project does get into the process of evaluation of the consultants that apply. So if there's interest in this meeting, that would line up, probably give that representative an opportunity to go through that process and kind of think about timing, as we probably, by the time the next meeting occurs, will be pretty close to the selecting a date for reviewing all of the applications and making that determination. So if there's interest in somebody on PRAC and being involved in that evaluation, I would be open to having a PRAC representative.
Do you know when, where?
I would imagine it'd be a fairly small group, and we could probably have some flexibility in that evaluation depending on who is selected.
I could commit if it's in the evening.
Okay.
Like
Chris?
in the evening.
I assume that this is where the use of Clackamas Park and everything else comes into play, so.
Correct, yeah. So for just clarification, so this would be for Clackamas Park, the adjacent properties next to McDonald's, as well as the boat ramp and the RV park. So those are the primary pieces of the master plan, which would contain the representative from PRAC would help us to select the consultant that would walk us through that process and to do a lot of the public involvement and actually writing the report for us. So you would be working closely with staff on selecting the consultant that would be used for that project.
I'd be happy to go ahead, Mike.
No.
I'd be happy to volunteer as well if having two of us on that as alternate perhaps
Okay.
would make some sense. If it turns out to be a daytime meeting, for example.
Okay. So I have Chris and Bill as first and second. At this point, we'd only planned on having one, but if we do need a backup, if we can only do morning meetings or daytime meetings, then we can go that route.
Yep.
Just for information, and I don't know if you plan to do it the same way, but I was on the group that selected the consultants for Filbert Run and Glen Oak, and we had one, as I recall, very short meeting, and basically we're given homework, and we had the presentation from each of the consultants and a scorecard, and we ranked it and turned in our scores, and then it was added up, and they were prioritized that way, and then there was an interview with, I think, the top 3.
Yes,
In a
and I was
second.
part of the interview
in a
process.
second meeting. Yeah. So,
Yeah. So
and
if,
I don't know if it's going to be the same process, but it's not a huge amount of time. In
No.
evaluating the proposals, you do that on your own time.
yeah. So it's not a huge commitment, and depending on the projects, the applications that are received, it might be advantageous to have an interview process or a presentation process, or not, depending on what the view of the committee. It's not a huge contract, so sometimes it's advantageous for the consultants not to have to go through as many hoops. But we want to definitely make sure that we get the right consultant on board.
I had another question, Joyce. I had another question regarding this subject, and we talked about it last meeting. to some detail about where the boat ramp is going to be a huge factor in this particular plan. And as I understand it, the city still has that option of whether we want to receive that money and put the boat ramp where they want to put it, or not have one at all.
Correct. So that was the emphasis of having this master plan conducted, was that the city commission was unwilling to commit to moving the boat ramp without further evaluation of the purpose of the park and the adjacent properties. And so this will allow them to have additional input from the community, more thorough process, and then give them information to make a full commitment on either keeping the boat ramp where it's at, moving the boat ramp to a new location, whether or not they are interested in taking on the full cost of the boat ramp, if that's of interest. So again, I think it will lead the commission to be able to have a better understanding of the community's interests as it relates to the entire property, as opposed to just the boat ramp.
Okay, well, thank you, Chris, for stepping forward, and Bill for being the alternate. And that whole process, though, once the consultant is determined, that whole thing, that for Glen Oak and Filbert Run, it was an interesting process. So look forward to doing another master plan, Sean. All right, moving on to the dog leash etiquette.
So this was an item that was brought forward by Lisa, so I think I will let Lisa lead this discussion.
Thank you. Over the past month, I've had the opportunity to do some traveling within the area. I've been to several off-leash dog areas and dog parks. There is quite the distinction. The signage that Phil handed out for the off-leash dog area is fairly typical. What I'll be saying from this point on is subjective and my personal observations. I've noticed that I'm really proud to say in Oregon City, people are really good about monitoring their dogs in the off-leash dog areas. I haven't had any issues. I've got a medium-sized, very friendly, boisterous, happy dog, and she can attract some larger dogs because she's energetic. And I've been to a couple of dog parks where these are actual fenced-in areas. It amazes me how individuals are so distracted and not paying attention to their dogs, and I've seen aggression not just to my dog, but to other dogs, and specifically being on cell phones or visiting with other people there. That's how I got injured, by the way, over in Portland at one of the off-leash dog parks, and that was when a very large dog came rushing towards me because someone had thrown a ball and wasn't paying attention. They were on their cell phone and threw the chucket, and this very large Rottweiler type of dog crashed into me, and that's how my knee got injured. So I do have to say, I'm very proud to everyone out there who may be listening, very proud of you, and thank you. Every experience in Oregon City has been very positive for me. What I'm wondering is if I can suggest the possibility of posting links on our website regarding safety and etiquette. I went to the dog park over in McMinnville, which is fenced in, but I also went on their website. And they do have links for dog safety and etiquette. And I'm thinking that could be a low-cost, low-hanging fruit that we could possibly have on the Parks and Rec website. I believe McMinnville has it linked in their Parks and Rec. Another comment, now this is beyond that etiquette topic, but I've had individuals ask me in the Park Place neighborhood if our area is fenced in, and no, and it seems like individuals do want a fenced-in area. Their dogs are not trained, and I believe that's coming eventually here in Oregon
Glen
City.
Oak has it
Glen
in the
Oak?
master plan.
Yeah, and so that's something that I think will be utilized by other individuals. So perhaps throughout Oregon City and other areas. Those are my comments.
It's interesting to hear how, in a fenced-in area, the owners are less aware of what their dog is doing because they don't need to be watching them quite so closely. And that just an off-leash dog park, you have to be watching your dog to make sure it doesn't go out of the boundaries. You're having to set the boundaries a little better. And yeah, better owners,
So etiquette
more
is
well-behaved dogs.
yeah, etiquette is on both
On-
dog and
It's,
person.
well, it's mostly on the person.
Mostly
Yes.
on the person, yes.
The dog can't clean up after itself too easily. Yeah.
So,
That's an
Lisa-
interesting observation. I didn't see us having, a month or two ago when we talked about that. In other words, there's, in some sense, there's kind of an advantage to not fencing them. Besides the cost,
Yeah.
which is huge. I mean, that kind of fence is expensive
yeah,
thing-
when we can't fix a playground tube that's burned or, other things.
With the exception of Park Place, I think our two, well, I guess it'd be only, our two are right on arterials or main.
Well, Wesley Lynn's not.
Leland
It's
and-
it's in.
Huh?
Wesley Lynn's way off the road.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So I
But-
guess
but the one by your old house.
Barclay Park where
Barclay
12th
Park
Street.
is very
Yeah.
close to the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the one defense.
yeah.
But Wesley Lynn's is perfect because it's nowhere near a road. If you're not off your cell phone and paying.
Right.
I guess
Yeah.
in terms of fencing parks, I think you need to get some input from the neighbors too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're asking that we,
Update the
that
website.
PRAC recommend that we can add some,
Yeah, so I just
Or
went on the
just
website
direct them.
to see. So we have the rules for the dog off leash areas, but we don't have any external links or anything to additional etiquette. So maybe I'll get some additional feedback from you offline and see if there's anything that we can add to the current website to improve that.
That would be great, thank you.
Definitely.
are the off-leash parks clearly identified on the city website?
Yes.
Okay, I've never looked because I just know where they are, so I've never had to seek that out.
Lisa,
Yeah.
could you talk about your observations between the two a little more? Like, describe them and kind of, between the unfenced and the fenced, essentially, and kind of what you saw or, pros and cons.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I didn't know there was very many like ours, I guess is why I say that.
Oh, certainly. Well, specifically the one in Stafford or Lake Oswego,
I
I
know where it's at.
believe. So they have a double gate, and so that I believe that's to control a dog who may not be under voice control. They have two separate areas, one for active dogs and one for less active dogs. I happen to work with one of the engineers I work with, also does dog training part-time, and I asked him some questions, and he said that's optimum, is to have the active and less active areas. This particular one, which was kind of cool, it had some agility course. They had some obstacles there for the dogs. For the off-leash areas, it seems like everyone, there's especially West Lynn, there's a understanding of each other, where if a dog seems to be overactive, they take them over to another side. I've seen people do that at Wesley Lynn. Larger dogs, maybe they're training the dog and they're away from the group of individuals that are with the dogs that are more less active or that are not as big. So I think people are monitoring themselves on in the off-leash areas. And just as Joyce said, I'll agree with that. It seems when the areas are fenced in, people kind of, well, I might as well get on my cell phone.
And that's
or
where I had a
let the
dog knock me to the ground too, in a
You
fenced-in
too?
dog park. Yeah,
Really?
and this big dog came running up and just planted himself on me and knocked me over backwards. At that point, you want to get up as fast as you can, because if you are a low man on the totem pole, you don't want to be in that position.
No. And back in the Midwest, one of my dogs was bit at a fenced-in dog park, and people on their cell phones and socializing. So maybe signs saying no cell phones, monitor your dog.
Yeah, watch your dog.
Yeah,
That's a society epidemic.
but yeah, there's some pretty good links out there. I learned quite a bit just by going on these links, these external links, and the McMinnville had a pretty good one, and they gave credits to I think it was a park in Idaho. But anyway, but I learned quite a bit, and just Googling do's and don'ts. Dogs should not be wearing halters or metal collars. Dogs should not be used for actual training of a dog. The dog should already be trained and socialized. The dog should be exercised before being in the dog park or off-leash dog area, either way. So that's an important thing. So I really learned quite a bit.
Yeah.
So.
Interesting. Thanks.
You ever had given your dog an exorcism?
I will
All right.
say, working for Portland Parks, that that the fenced-in dog areas are more popular, and maybe it's because they don't have to watch their dog every second, and they're socializing with either their phone or with another person. But I will say that those areas all suffer overuse and becomes a maintenance problem. Not just an issue, but a problem, because it is a confined area, and more people tend to gravitate towards them when they have a choice between off-leash and fenced in.
Yeah. And that's, I think when we first did this a couple of years ago, one of my thoughts was, I just want to go somewhere where I want to be, I don't want to be the rule breaker. And so it's nice to just have an area where I can do it if I want to, and I don't feel like I'm violating the law. It's, and so we would drive to, like, Wilsonville had a great place. Even though I lived at Wesleyland, but I wanted to go run them, so I'd take them out there. But just knowing you can do it in the city, I wonder if that's enough. In other words, now, as citizens, we have 3 places that we can go and run a dog off leash and not violate the law. Is that enough from a, it saves on maintenance, it's cheaper than fencing, and does that meet, say, the 80% mark of the civic need? That's a question I pose.
I still want to see the fenced-in park at Glen Oak.
I agree.
And Barclay,
Yeah, mostly
even,
because
perhaps.
it's-
And Barclay, perhaps.
Yeah, and maybe if you consider one for a
Barclay.
safety standpoint, maybe Barclay should have one. But I wonder if you just automatically, okay, we like dog parks, they were a success. Do you have to fence them all? I guess that's the question I'm kind of asking.
I would say Portland, for example, I think has 33 dog parks or dog off-leash areas. Roughly 2/3 of them are not fenced.
Okay.
About 1/3 of them are fenced. There are considerations for maintenance and upkeep, as Bill stated. You get more people; they are more popular, as Sean stated. You have specific entry points, so you have areas that get really muddy, and if you have turf, there are you can use chips or sand, and make them a little bit more usable year round. But they aren't. People tend to not like them as much. They like turf. The design of Glen Oak does call for turf, and I will say, talk within staff has been, most agencies that have turf dog parks close them for portions of the year for turf renovations or because of wet weather conditions. That will degrade the turf. So having having an additional dog park that is fenced in some capacity that could be flipped seasonally with the one at Glen Oak it would probably be advantageous for the city at some point. Not to say that we need to do that at the same time as Glen Oak, but I would imagine pretty soon after opening Glen Oak as the only fenced dog park within our system, it probably will get very heavy use and need to have renovations done somewhat regularly. So that would be a consideration for the city. As a dog owner myself, I don't take my dogs to dog off-leash areas, and I would take my dog to, and I do take my dog to dog parks, just because I don't trust him to not wander off. As much as I am watching him, maybe I need to take more dog obedience training. But
did you read all the rules?
Right, exactly. So there is, I'm sure, a percentage of the population that probably does not use the dog off leash areas that probably would use the dog park, and because of the confined space, everyone's using the exact same space as opposed to dog off leash areas. You have an opportunity to kind of go in and out of the boundaries a little bit and enter from different areas as opposed to everyone coming through one set spot. So there definitely are maintenance considerations, as Bill stated.
And there's one other area of concern that we will come across, and that's removal of the waste. It's a tremendous effort. It's very heavy.
Very heavy.
Portland uses very thick bags and vaults, and it actually it's about 4 to 5 feet deep, and you use a crane to haul these out with rope, just because of the that's how heavy and how much use they get. And probably on like a weekly basis, 3 or 4 cans in a fenced on the perimeter of the fenced dog, because that's how much. I mean, because otherwise you're looking at back injuries trying to empty these cans out otherwise.
I hadn't thought about that at all.
Maybe we should encourage people to get gerbils.
That's it.
That would be quite the campaign.
That's it.
So, and going on from there, has there been any feedback from the community regarding the 3 dog parks that we do have, besides just ourselves using them and finding which ones are favorites, or our dog's favorites?
The only feedback I've gotten locally, just seeing other people walking their dogs, oh, have you used Park Place? No, my dog's not trained to be off leash. So it's...
Phil, have you gotten any public comments, emails or phone calls or whatever, asking for additional off-leash areas?
I have not personally, and I did reach out to John Waverly, our park maintenance manager, to request feedback on dog parks in general. He doesn't get a lot of complaints, and we get a lot of dog waste at all of our parks, so it's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly the net positive or negative associated with the dog parks, but we have not received any definitive complaints, and I have not personally received any requests or for either fenced dog areas or expansion of dog off-leash areas or removal of dog off-leash areas for that matter. So it might be, I know that we discussed this at the last meeting, or maybe even the meeting before that as well, doing some type of survey, a public survey to see how the dog off leash program is going. I did pull the language, I forget who brought it up the last meeting, about doing it as a test, as a 1-year test, and I looked up the timing. I think it was either November or December of 14 when it went
For
before
1 year.
commission.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how quickly after that we actually unveiled the dog off leash areas,
About a
but
year later.
we have it's been some time, so
Couple
I think
years
it would be interesting to receive a little bit of feedback in some formalized way so that we can kind of give additional direction to this group and to the city for looking at either dog parks or continuance of dog off leash areas.
I think that's a good point, but I'm already hearing that I think it's a success.
It's
think-
working.
I totally expected complaints. And we used to hear, I would say in 13, 14, we would hear from people that we need this. And I have not heard one person come to a meeting or even out in town say that since. hey, when are you going to do that? I haven't heard people mention a fenced area, and so the answer has always been Glen Oak. But I guess knowing that that capacity will be added, that it seems like we're meeting the need
Yeah.
at the short side of it. I'd be curious to see what survey would
Yeah.
yield, though. Like a trail news, is that what you're thinking? Putting in a notice in there that,
Yeah, probably doing a trail news and then just social media outreach. I would be curious. I don't know if there's. I know Lisa has a strong feelings about the dog off leash areas. I'd be interested if maybe another member in addition to Lisa might be interested in helping come up with, as kind of a subcommittee, coming up with some of that language to put forward, or if the direction would be maybe to just have staff come up with that and bring back to a meeting of what questions would look like. I don't want to give you additional homework. I know you've already committed to other things, but
that's fine.
I also don't want to cut this group out of that,
Yeah.
that process. So
No, that's fine. Part of the perplexed look on my face is either my dog is really smart, really chicken, or I'm a good trainer, because it was easy for me to get her to come back to recall. So I'm thinking in my mind, just as we were chatting, is she smart, chicken, or am I a good trainer? I don't know.
I'd go with good trainer.
Sure, I'd be happy to come up with
So
something.
if you're doing the planning at Glen Oaks Park, and that is going to be a fenced dog area, I guarantee you that that process that Portland is using to remove the waste around those fenced areas, whether it's all four corners or what have you, that's done on a semi-weekly basis. And how they would do it is have a pickup and a winch on that pickup. I mean, not just pickup, a flatbed, half-ton, full ton, and depending on how many they were doing on their route, and they would take it to a dumpster, open dumpster, and drop it into, so that you actually were above the dumpster, so that crane didn't have to lift it any, because they do get heavy, and you never want a mistake.
would be messy.
Right, so that's
Yeah.
something you're going to have to not think about it afterwards, and you're asking employees to empty these cans, whether they're seasonals or whatever, because it is truly a problem for back injuries.
Yeah, I appreciate that input. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we should just make it like, all the campgrounds, haul it in, haul it out. You've got
Yeah.
to take it back to your own home and put it in your own garbage can.
I will tell you,
Answer.
my business has adopted a street, and when I clean up on it, 5 times over the last 3 years, people have had a doggy bag and dropped it in off the curb there
Just
and
leave
left it
it,
on the
right.
street. So they pick up after their dog and drop the bag in the street.
Yeah.
Well, the sad one is the apartments as you go around Myers Road towards the old Hagens, and they've got those poop bag
Yes.
dispensers.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll tie it and set it on the ground next to the.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no trash can there. They'll just put it next to the
I've
post.
seen that too.
And
Yeah.
sometimes we'll drive by and there'll be like 10 bags there.
Yeah.
We're sending a message.
Give us a garbage can.
Right. Put a garbage can.
Okay. Well, I think we've
I never thought about that.
talked that one to death. All right. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of a survey we can come up with. But again, as Sean said, we haven't heard the complaints. People are happy. Being able to go somewhere and let your dog run without fear of getting fined because parks, you have to have your dogs on leash. It's a good feeling. Any other general business? Are we checking that one off? And on to member reports. You want to start down there, Roger? You always have your great report ready for
I
us
do.
from the senior center.
Okay, Pioneer items I have to report. We're getting a path set through the Peace Garden and adding some new benches. It'll be a good start for getting the grounds in shape. We also have new benches ordered for the flagpole area. A base map for the Pioneer grounds is being drawn up. We are interviewing for a receptionist position for 16 hours per week. and hikes have started and are booked full. Yeah, pretty popular. Let's see, I guess I have the only other thing, since we already talked about the Willamette Falls, Tom O'Brien did set up a Filbert Run park cleanup along with the city, with the Parks Department. So I know there were a few of us there. So, and it was a good turnout, and I guess I was surprised that, I was expecting 4-foot grass and, and it was just raking. So, anyway, that's pretty much it for me.
Thank you for doing that volunteer. Is there any plan on taking care of the flagpoles that are part of the senior center property there, that are in bad shape and they've lost their finials, and so I don't know if we have any money in the budget to even paint those guys.
Yeah, I have had that discussion with staff, and they are aware of the disrepair of the poles. It has not risen to the level of their ability to get to those at this point, but it is currently on their list of items to address when they have the capacity to do so.
What is the issue? Just a little more detail.
The paint is peeling and there's no finials on top, so they're just open pipes at the top.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
probably not good for the pole either, and then there's some tree issues of the trees growing too close, so that when the flag is flying, the flying edge gets caught in the trees and rips up the flag, and so there's.
We have 3
few
flag
issues.
poles. One of them currently has an American flag on it. The other 2 on either side currently do not have flags on them.
They used to have an Oregon flag and a city flag.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and just on that note, I think the state legislature recently passed a bill that all public facilities with 3 flagpoles will fly the American flag, the state flag, and the POW/MIA flag. That's a recent thing in 2017. I can provide you with that if you can't find it.
That would be great. Yeah, thank you.
So,
We also have the flagpole on McLaughlin Promenade that is also should be included in that same category with repair to the mast, the pole,
and is it flying a flag?
and
And-
it has a
and-
tattered flag.
Yeah, and that particular flag, I think it was one of our tours down at the mill, and I looked up and saw the flag, and you could see the fraying flying edge of the flag too.
Yeah, I was just at the Ermitinger earlier today and did notice the flag poles at the Pioneer Center, and the flag looks newer. The flag poles do look awful. I have not been to that section of the promenade recently, but I'll go and take a look at it and again address that with staff. But as far as the flags, definitely we want to make sure that we're paying due respect with the flags, the flag poles themselves. When we do have time and the capacity to do those, we will do those as well.
And just so you know that at the VFW, they have a mailbox that you can put flags in that need to be retired.
Oh.
So, and they hold a ceremony there once a year, and they just did it at May 1st, and they do it every May 1st. So when your guys take those flags down, fold them up and have them go down there when they're maintaining the promenade, and
great.
just put it in the bin.
Thank you.
It looks like the old mailbox, you throw your mail in, it's painted and marked very clearly right by the front door.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Roger, for bringing up flagpoles.
Oh, you're welcome.
Didn't know what you were getting into.
Well done.
Okay, Lisa.
It's been a busy month. I had a couple of family obligations, one of them being a fundraising effort. And that was in Sheridan, at the Sheridan Park. And it was a fundraising for my grandniece's school. And what my sister and I did was we served food. We had the food booth. So I was taking orders and serving food. So that was a lot of fun. And they have a skate park right within their park. So that was pretty neat, seeing that. The kids really made use of that. But it was a fun event, and I'm not sure exactly how much was raised, but it was what I think was a success. People were raving about the food. One interesting thing, aspect of my job as an order taker was to double check that individuals had bracelets so that they actually had paid to gain admission, and that they weren't just coming for the food, so they had to pay for admission to the festivities itself. So it was $10, I think, just the entrance fee for that. So that was a lot of fun. But the other thing regarding Park Place, things seem to be quiet and all good there. I've been making a point being sure that I get down there every morning, and things are clean. People are picking up after themselves. And speaking of dogs, so I haven't seen any problems. There do seem to be people out early in the morning now with the warmer weather getting their exercise, so I do notice that. I expect to see that more in the coming week, especially with the heat wave coming. But things are good, maintained, so all is good.
Doug?
I guess a couple of things. One, first of all, I thank Roger for coming down to Filbert Run. I felt obligated to go there because I'm only live 3 blocks away from the park. So anyway, so I was there. It was a fairly good team of people were out there did a cleanup, and seen Phil there, and also Jonathan. I think one of your other parks people were there too. And they were taking and dumping the what do you call them, the things for the yard debris that they put out for the garbage. They were running back and forth with us continuously. So we built up, I don't know how many, we must have moved tons of material out of there, I presume. The other thing, a couple other things I wanted to mention. The Great Oregon City Watershed Council once a year gets down onto the Abernathy Creek Park, and I had noticed when they do these yearly bird counts, everybody goes on, does counts, and I don't know their scientific validity, but the stream that had the largest number of wood ducks per mile was Abernathy Creek, and when I was down there, sure enough, I saw a pair of wood ducks, female and male, going past the park there. The other thing was that we're also involved in the restoration effort there at the ELC, and we've been removing amphibians and trying to get them off site. We want to have them to have the ability to come back. I didn't know when we took out the permit, but yes, you can salvage them and take them out, but you can't return them. So we couldn't go back and bring some back in. So the group of people there had set up a screen there on Abernathy, Upper Newell Creek, upper area of Newell Creek, to release them down in the stream themselves, in the hopes that they'll go downstream, and then some of them will eventually make it back. But apparently it's not that difficult for the things to get reestablished. There are a lot of juvenile tadpoles and salamanders in there. We probably got 1,000 out of there, and
Wow.
there's still a lot of them that we'll be going back after.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Mike?
Just a couple of things from the Parks Foundation. Our next meeting is next Tuesday night at 7 o'clock at the First City Bistro, train station, railroad, whatever, bike shop, whatever the name
The
is.
Depot Bistro.
That's First City
Central Marketplace.
Central Marketplace and Bistro,
Yeah.
I think is the official name. Anyway, it's there. Next Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. You're certainly all invited. Phil, I believe I heard that you're going to be there to talk about the McLaughlin-Kenema Trail.
Yes.
Is that the right project?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for that. We also, one night next week, and Roger, maybe you're going to have to help. You're going to have to help refresh my memory. We did make an application to the enhancement grant for invasive species removal at Waterboard Park,
On the 29th.
and the presentation part of that before the grant committee is
3 minutes.
of what night?
That's the 29th,
29th, which is
Thursday, I believe.
Thursday of next week.
Yes.
Okay. So that's happening, and if anyone would like to sit in the audience and smile and nod and support that, that would be great too.
What time is it at?
Do you know the time?
I think it's 6 o'clock.
sounds right.
And again, where was that at, Mike? I'm sorry.
Here.
Okay.
That's here. Okay. I think that's it for now.
Okay, Sean.
So I've mentioned this. I think I might have even said it at the pool last month, but I wanted to bring it up publicly that I want us to commend Rochelle and the other pool staff for the way that facility looks. I remember it must have been my first or second year on PRAC, maybe third, 2004, 2005. That place was in dire straits, and the discussion amongst this group at that time was, should we tear it down and go out for a bond for a new one because this thing is dilapidated and falling apart? And frankly, the conclusion was, my recollection was that the citizens wouldn't vote for a bond, but there's still no money to fix it. And so then walking in last month, having not been in it in, I don't know, a year and a half or two, it just amazed me at where we were in 2003 or 4 to where it is now. It's just outstanding. I mean, they've done an amazing job. And I think even it goes to a budgeting strategies from staff, the department heads at the time, and I hope that continues, because those little bits that have been able to funnel in there each year, boy, it was just amazing. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say publicly. Get that back to her, please.
Thank you. I will.
Okay, Bill.
I'm saving mine for the future agenda items. So
Okay.
I have no comments.
So a couple weeks ago, I was taking a walk with the girls, and we came upon some neighbors up there on Holcomb. And it kind of goes back to my earlier statement about the newly annexed property over there, and there's probably 8 of them, and they'd come out to kind of talk about what's going on over there. They're falling timber over there, clearing the land, getting it ready. So the discussion was really around, what is this going to be? More houses. There's no sidewalks here. What's this going to do for traffic? There's talk of more commercial development up further Holcomb and more residential development up that way also. And some, I guess, a road down to Redland at some point from Holcomb. But one of the hot topics was, parks, and there's really nothing up there. I guess they used to take them over to Holcomb Elementary, and they're closing the gate there now after hours. I asked them if they knew about Park Place, and most of them knew about it. And comments really around, it's kind of an older park, and it's great for little kids, but it's not like Wesleyland or Chapin Park that have some bigger equipment for bigger kids and things like that. So they were just kind of talking about their hopes and wishes that there's more parks or a park up further Holcomb. So I just wanted to pass that along.
Yeah, now would be the time to look at land out there. Is that comp plan done and approved? The Park Place?
For the annexation.
Well, no, Park Place did a big
plan.
The concept plan.
Yeah,
The concept plan's been approved for Park Place. It does include a community park and a neighborhood park.
Okay.
The community park around, I believe it called for something in the 10 acres, right around there for the community park. The neighborhood park would be further south and is closer to a 3-acre park, which is called for. And I would say that community services staff are working with community development staff on ways to approach acquiring properties for park development in those areas, as per laid out by the plan. North of Holcomb, I don't believe we currently have any master plan that calls for additional parks in that area as of right now, unfortunately.
Okay. Just want to remind everybody that Concerts in the Park will be starting on July 13th down at the end of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center. So every Thursday night through the rest of July and all of August. And then the movies in the park that will be in August on Friday nights up at Wesleyland Park. And so make sure you go that. And then starting tomorrow and Saturday, there will be Oregon City Heritage Days. And so anybody who can get a chance, please come to any of the museums in town. You can start at any one of them, or you can start at the elevator. But if you want to park, probably down at the end of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center is the biggest parking lot. And there will be shuttle buses running between all the museums. Everything is free. The museums will be free. There will be interpreters on the buses to talk to you about historic Oregon City. I will be one of those interpreters. And so that's where I've been kind of putting my concentrated effort for the last little bit, trying to get myself prepared to tell people about our town. Just, a little bit of history for me. My family came over the Oregon Trail. They were kind of late on the migration and came to keep their sons from being conscripted into the Union Army from Iowa. And when the war between the states was over, they went back. But full circle, we're back here again.
Carefully in your heavy wool vintage costume
Oh, no,
for 100 degrees.
No, mine is actually very lightweight cotton.
Good,
And
good plan.
yeah,
Yours is not. I can pretty much guarantee that.
yeah.
Dr. McLaughlin didn't wear a seersucker suit.
No, Dr. McLaughlin and his skivvies. No. Okay. So, anything else anybody brought up and wants to comment on? And then moving on to, let's see, if any more of the recreation report from the pool, or did we get those by email?
Those should have gone out by email. I looked back and I think they got sent out a little earlier than normal.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those should be out. The next item, Glen Oak Park, as all of you know, we were successful in receiving grant funds from the state for Glen Oak. So we received just under $500,000 to begin the development. We have not signed paperwork yet, but anticipate within the next month or two that should happen. And we'll begin the process of developing the park, so including the
Happy dance.
yeah. Very, very good news. So the project is roughly $2 million. It's a phase one, which will include the High School Avenue side and the Myers Road side, the side closest to Glen Oak Street or Avenue, whatever it is right there. It is not part of the development. So the house and then the frontage on Glen Oak will not be done until a future phase. Yes.
This is kind of a request. About 2 years before Wesley Lynn was built, that street did not go through. So the street and the parking lot, none of that was there. So you'd come up right at Silver Fox, and it was a dead end. And right at that dead end, and then at the opposite end, was a big wooden sign with a picture of the master plan of the park, said coming soon. And I think that would be appropriate at this site.
Very true.
And now you could probably fairly safely say coming in 2018.
Right. Yeah.
So
We prior to receiving that notification, I don't know that I would feel comfortable putting that up, but yeah, definitely happy news to put up about the future park now. I think would be much appreciated.
Thank you, Sean.
And then the Ermitinger House, just to give an update, we are also preparing for the Heritage Days event, Oregon City Heritage Days. The Ermitinger House will be one of the locations. Will be open from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. both Friday and Saturday. We've been putting the finishing touches on the house over the last couple of days. We have minimum furniture on site. We have some of the artwork on the walls, and we just installed this morning, some of the interpretive panels, which highlight the Ermitinger House, Francis and Catherine, the coin flip, and then the spoon set that's still known, that we have a couple of spoons that were owned by the Ermitinger. So those interpretive panels have been installed. Again, a lot of the furniture that was donated is on site. It is pretty rough as far as additional layout furniture pieces. So the property, though, is it's exciting to see what is now the home, and we're excited to be able to be there to open it up to the community. So if you've not had a chance to go in since the construction, and I know most folks haven't had a chance to go in since the finishing touches and the furniture pieces have gone in, so I would invite everyone, the community included, out to the Oregon City Heritage Days at Ermitinger House. If you don't get a chance to go to the other properties, if nothing else, please do come to the Ermitinger House 10 to 5, either Friday or Saturday.
I'll have to stop there on my way down to my bus rotation. I have
Yeah.
a little bit of time in the morning. I'll have to get down there and do that. Okay. Future agenda items. Bill.
I have a couple to ask, and one to suggest. And I may have suggested this in the past, but I learned it from Martin Montalvo, Public Works Operations Officer, regarding to the community losing these two signs that were removed from the library and Library Park.
Okay.
Martin says that where he came at in Florida, where he was working last, they barcoded all their benches and memorials. So if there's a loss of history, and that's what happened here, a lot of the people weren't, including the library director, a lot of people weren't aware that these were community donations. That would have been resolved. They still would have removed them, but they knew who to ask. Do you want these back? And that could go for ever, actually. I mean, there's no reason why we can't start that, and maybe staff could at least start that discussion with the rest of the. Certainly, we talked to Maureen a little bit about that, but apparently Martin has the ability to put something that in place.
Okay. Yeah, I'll reach out to Martin to see.
And of course, Parks gets a lot of those memorials put into parks, benches primarily, and water fountains, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, definitely.
And I've been away from PRAC for a while, but I know that I'm assuming that we've had discussions about the cemetery business, that the city's in the cemetery business, and Doug's well aware of these discussions as well. Is that something that have we revisited that topic in terms of choices of how to, because it is a draw on the general fund. Is it? I guess my question is, we're making some money or enough money that it's a break-even kind of this business decision to keep it within the city. Is that something that you've had any?
Yeah, so we can definitely, as we are going through and discussing each of the departments within community services, Jonathan Waverly, as the park maintenance and operations manager, he supervises the cemetery, and that's part of his portfolio. So I would well expect him to be able to come and present on the cemetery as part of his discussion. I will say that the expenses and revenue for the cemetery are tied into very closely the park's operations budget. Mm-hmm. We don't have a separate budget for the cemetery. So we also have staff that serve both the cemetery as well as the park facility. So it might be difficult to fully analyze the cost and the revenue. Well, the revenue would be a lot easier to analyze, but the cost associated with maintaining the cemetery properties might be a little difficult to fully vet out, but we can definitely have that conversation and bring additional information forward.
I know it's been probably 15 years ago that the community was involved in that discussion at the commission level, and there's certainly a lot of positions on both sides of that topic that the city should be in it, and there's others who say we should be out of it. And I just was hoping maybe at some point in time that we get back to that discussion to see if it's still a viable topic to make some decisions on as an advisory group anyway.
Yeah, I remember that. Maybe my first year, it was a very hot topic at the time, and we haven't even discussed it in
Clackamas County kind of messed up on that in cities when Metro Regional Government came into being. Portland, Multnomah County negotiated for Metro to take over all the pioneer cemeteries, and we're still, quote, stuck, unquote, with ours.
Maybe Metro could take that. We could work some Riverwalk trade.
There we go.
There we go.
It'll be nice to see John Waverly anyway.
Yeah.
In the last item I'd like to ask about, and we've talked about it before, is perhaps if an agenda would allow at some point in time, maybe perhaps this winter, about talking about a Parks and Recreation Service District and what the pros and the cons, and you have some background with that, but certainly as I read the paper every Wednesday anyway, what's going on in Happy Valley and with the North Clackamas, and whether that's still a benefit to what I think as an advisory committee we should at least have a position, have some sort of background knowledge. If I'm asked that, what does the Parks and Rec Board feel about that? Is that something they want to start as a topic? And of course it's commission driven. I don't know if the commission is even interested in touching that subject or not, but if they are, at least to find some background information on whether that's something that could work for our end of the county, or perhaps even the north end of the county.
Yeah. There was at one of the recent commission meetings, Commissioner Shaw asked for information to be presented to commission on service or special districts. I later touched base with him and with the city manager on the best way to approach that discussion, and so I will be presenting to city commission most likely in August, mid-August, the work session date in that month, information on not just special districts or service districts, but how to properly fund parks and recreation operations for a community, which would include information on special districts or service districts. I have not had the opportunity to fully vet out tying in the presentation to PRAC probably around the same time. So whether it's, I don't know that I will have all the information available to present in July, and depending on if we decide to do an August meeting, so maybe I'll work with the chair and vice chair of this group to determine an appropriate timing for a similar presentation, or inviting PRAC to the city commission work session in order to listen on that topic. And I'm sure the mayor, even though there is typically not public comment received during work sessions, there might be an opportunity for identified members of this group to possibly give comment or feedback. But yeah, something definitely to work through the presentation styles.
I'd love at least an email when that occurs to know about it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
First thing in my mind is I'd love to hear it just from that standpoint.
Yeah, and with the other projects currently on my plate, I honestly haven't had an opportunity to fully vet out what that would look like. But over the next couple of weeks, I'll probably have additional information that I can share with this group.
Thank you.
Good talk.
Joyce?
Yes.
I have one thing.
Okay.
And I probably should have brought it up under general business, or maybe it is a future agenda item that PRAC would want to weigh in on. Thinking about Glen Oak, last Sunday, when I heard that we got the grant money, my wife and I took the dog and we walked around the site. And this kind of ties in with Sean's idea about a sign coming soon, kind of ties in with what the neighborhood has done with Filbert Run. I would like to ask if the group agrees that Jonathan and Phil investigate the possibility of mowing all or part of that site. It's rougher than Filbert Run. There's a gigantic amount of blackberries, but there's also a pretty nice trail all the way around the perimeter, and a road, a gravel road through the center.
Back of the house, yeah.
No, it's to where the old house on the backside by the bus barn used to be.
Okay.
It isn't it goes under the wood entry arch gate thing,
Okay.
but it goes back to where the old house was. And the new the house that the renter is in is actually kind of fenced off. And anyway, I think the neighborhood would appreciate that. It would almost feel like, okay, we put up a sign and we're doing a little something.
Yeah.
It's not going to be, it's not a park yet, but you could explore and see what it could be. And
Yeah.
with the master plan sign there, anyway. So at least from me, I'd like to request that you look into the possibility of doing that.
I'm
Yeah.
absolutely in favor of that. You go in there and brush hog that thing 3 or 4 times a year, and you could really knock it down a large portion, and it would not take. It would take some effort. I recognize that, and effort they don't have much time for. But it's not like we're asking for biweekly mowing.
Yeah, and it might be able to be tied into site prep for the future development. So,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, definitely something we can look into.
Plus, if you brush hog it now, it's going to die off for the next 2-3 months anyway.
Yeah, right.
You've already missed the growth
100
growth
degree.
spurt.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, definitely.
I have one.
Yes, Roger.
Okay, I've been and I frequently get information from the Xerces Society, and they sent me an email saying that recently they were working in Westland and passed a resolution to eliminate neonicotinoid insecticides, which are toxic to honeybees and other important pollinators, and they even though that West Lynn doesn't use anything like that, they passed this so that to be clear that they don't plan to use them in the future either. And they this person that sent me this email was Amy Code. She's pesticide program director for Xerces, and she's offered to come to one of our meetings to discuss passage of a similar resolution for Oregon City. And part of this is that even though Oregon City, I believe, doesn't use anything with this pesticide in it, that I don't know about your neighborhoods, but I got people, Mr. Chemical across the street, and well, we're concerned about stuff floating in the air.
Oh, sure.
I mean, I don't know what people are spraying, in our neighborhoods, but what it does is it makes it public awareness of if the city's actually going to pass something like this, that a resolution like this, that it just makes people more aware of this, what you're spraying in your yard. So I didn't know if this was something to be put on. I know that I sent Doug for his NRC to discuss too. And maybe that would be either a joint thing or a future agenda.
That'd probably be a great topic for the joint meeting.
Yes, put that on the joint.
I feel I forget the name of the group has put in an application for the Metro Enhancement to actually educate people on those particular issues.
Oh,
Natural
the Westland group?
It may be the
Yes, that's right.
yes, and
Okay.
the Natural Resource Committee wrote in a letter of support for that grant application,
We
and
did.
they're looking to public education piece.
The Parks Foundation also sent a letter in with support. The other item, I don't know, this might not be, okay, this is something that William and Joyce, William brought up at our foundation meeting, was that they're having issues down at EOT with birds building nests, and I believe is it in the pipes?
Well, no, it's not. It's in the wooden structure of the building itself along.
Right.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
okay. So, for I did a time. I wanted to get a hold of Audubon to discuss it with them, to get some ideas from them. But as far as I know, the flickers are causing the big. I don't know if you want to get this right. Just quick, if this was first of all, should this be a future item, or and I probably shouldn't get into it more here. But I just wanted to say that we have species of birds like the violet green swallows are having issues on the West Coast, and they're starting to decline. And we get those here, and they're beautiful birds. And my question is there any rules about putting birdhouses in parks to help species like this? So like along the promenade there, violet greens, they normally you can put them on a post or even on the lamp post, and they're very beneficial in helping to take care of mosquitoes and other flying species and bird, insects. So I don't
That'd
know
be
if there's any rules like that or
good thing
for
to
the
look into.
parks for putting birdhouses up to help.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that we have anything detailing that, but something to consider.
So I don't know if that would be something for a future
For a
agenda.
future agenda. Thank you. Okay.
So the birds and the bees.
Birds and bees. An invasive
We'll have
species.
public comment that night.
May I suggest that could be another item that you want to put in the joint work session?
Oh, okay.
And I was thinking that if somebody wanted to come and do a presentation, it might be good to do it on that July 27th,
Wow.
right after the meeting, so that those who are in the natural resources that
Yeah.
would want to stay.
But then
Could-
the PrAC people wouldn't be able to see it. We'd be doing our meeting, wouldn't we?
Are you talking about after the PrAC meeting?
Or in the PrAC
No,
meeting.
no, to have a presentation during the PrAC
Yeah.
meeting,
Oh, I'm sorry.
and that NRC
Oh, could
members
stay.
could
Yeah.
stay
Yeah.
after we've had the joint meeting. That's what I
That's
was
great idea.
trying to make myself clear about. Yes.
And I currently have, and we can detail the agenda items later, but I currently have Gail presenting from EOT on the 27th as part of our series of having departments or
Okay.
associated organizations. So if
So it might
we
have
can
to be
talk,
a different
yeah.
time, but we'll just have to make sure that we invite the Natural Resources Committee to come. We'll get to hear about the birds
And
that are attacking the wagons. The invasive birds that are attacking the wagons.
are you sure they're invasive?
Yes.
They're English sparrows,
Yes.
which aren't really from England or from South Africa. But
Where does South Africa get them?
Wow.
I don't want to get my. I was born in England. I don't want to get a bad rap.
I didn't see them in Zimbabwe when I lived there.
Okay. We got 90 seconds to finish this up here. Anything else that we need for the good of the order?
I would just to throw it out there. Future agenda items for future meetings. Is it of interest to meet in August, or should we skip the August meeting as we have in years past?
And then we could go to the concert in the park.
That's right. I don't see any
Because
reason
we're already
why not.
having to skip the July concert
Oh, that's
on the 27th.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What? We need to talk?
We need to talk.
I think we have a conflict.
You could go to
We have a
one.
conflict.
You could skip one PrAC meeting, Roger. We'd forgive you.
But you two can't skip the same meeting.
You're right.
There's too many members of the
We'll deal with that.
Parks Foundation board.
the beer garden calling you?
Crack
Yeah.
at this point. Okay, so all right. So at
So
this
skip
point,
in
we
August.
will say we will not have a meeting in August, only a July meeting, unless something really important comes up, and then we will communicate via emails. See if something has to happen, or we could just all touch base down at the concert.
Without making a decision.
Quorum.
Right. No,
Because,
this is-
because
We're
we
talking
are,
about making
we
a
are
decision.
not having a Parks Day event on the first movie in August,
We'll use the fist to fight
as we have in years past. That's not happening this year. So,
to make a decision. without making a decision.
okay, no door prizes this year at the movies. All right, since nobody took over on that. Any other questions? May I end this meeting at 9 o'clock?
Wow,
We're
very
good job.
done.
Very
Precise.